Welcome to the Nat and Sarah Show, where we aim to touch, move, and inspire you every single week. Really? We're really going to introduce our own show? Maybe we should leave it to the pro.
Oh my gosh. Okay, 1 second, ladies. Here we go. Sarah Maxwell and Natalie Cook are experts in visualization and deliberate use of the law of attraction. As dynamic world athletes representing Canada and Australia in beach volleyball, they honed in on achievement at the highest level. Winning an Olympic gold medal on her home beach of Bondi is a pinnacle example. Their powerful techniques transmute the spiritual to the tangible, allowing thousands of their community members to bring their vision boards to life. Recently, they've taken their expertise on the road as the full-time family, where they inspire, coach, and lead people to create their unique, deliberate family life using a simplified 3-step process. Welcome to the Nat and Sarah Show. Join us for twice-weekly episodes. Each week, Nat and Sarah will teach us how to deliberately create results in all areas of life using their unique 3-step process. Not only that, they'll also sit down with some of their favorite high achievers who have manifested what most merely dream about. Are you a member of the community? Go to bit.ly/The Nat and Sarah Show to download your 3-step journal to follow along with each workshop-style teaching episode and get ready to take action on your inspirations.
Today, we continue the conversation with a social innovator and global changemaker who took a horrific event in her life and transformed it into a solution that benefits humankind. Until 2010, Megan Gilmore was busy with her work in international aid and development when her son was diagnosed with a life-threatening illness. Stopping everything to help her son revealed a huge social problem: education for kids that can't attend school due to illness. So of course, she co-founded the not-for-profit MissingSchool in answer to that. She is a Churchill Fellow, a TEDx speaker, and recently, 2019, Telstra Business Women's Award for Purpose and Social Enterprise winner. Woo! So having been mentored by this dynamic woman is such an honor. Her strategic work in the social enterprise sphere makes her inspiring, unique, and in action for the betterment of humankind. I hope to be like her one day when I grow up. I thought she'd laugh at that. So thank you, Megan, for taking a slice out of your jam-packed day to devote to other changemakers in waiting. So welcome, my friend.
Thank you for having me. It's so good to be here. And what an intro.
What an intro, I know. That's you, right? Isn't that crazy? Like, you did all that.
Living into it, trying to live into it.
As all people I find who are really up to something in life is, you almost hear that and think, really? Because you're so in the moment doing what you do that you're not really doing it to tick those boxes and, you know, win a Churchill Fellow. So Mike, I was so curious because we have worked together before. However, I didn't know this. So, you know, I'm still a curious being. I use these podcasts to learn for myself. So Megan, as a little girl, did you always have a dream to make a social impact on the world?
Thank you for this question. It's one that I only revisited recently, actually, when I was getting my bio written by somebody else, because I realized that I needed a little bit of help to just pull out things that I might not be seeing. And I provided her with a whole lot of material, and she came back to me and said, "This is all wonderful, but what's your origin story?" And that really threw me because I didn't have a ready answer for it. So I went away and spent a few days thinking about it, and I guess that helps me to answer the question. So I guess my background as a little girl, like my upbringing, my context was I lived in possibly the lowest socioeconomic area in Sydney, in Australia.
Okay.
And it was at that, you know, I guess back in the early 70s when I was a child, it was a hugely diverse, multicultural environment, which I didn't think about until I went out into the wider world later on and realized that that was unusual. And so I guess when I look back on things and I trace it back, I see that around that time, living with such difference and diversity, and I won't even say a tolerance for it, it was just my world. That's what it was.
Right.
I guess I developed out of that a huge sense of social justice that probably came out later on when I saw racism and bigotry and more of that. So I was also raised, my mother's a Catholic and my father's agnostic, so that was an interesting mix. The only thing they didn't argue about was religion, they say. But I went to a Catholic school, so I guess that social justice aspect as well was an early part of my experience, much as I've sort of divested myself of the Catholic Church. So yeah, and I think I left school at 15, even though I was academically, I was a high achiever. And I said to the woman who wrote my bio that I guess this was my first experiment into social innovation because people saw that as an unusual choice for someone who was academic.
Right.
But I suppose I saw the world a different way, and I wanted to act in the world in a different way, and I didn't just want to fit in with what was expected of me.
Did you do activist-like things as a kid that you can remember?
No, not particularly, but I remember I was a defender of the underdog.
Got it.
So, and I didn't like to see people being pushed down. And I guess at that time I probably understood that I had something in me that could help. So, but I do put down a lot of the early formation of, apart from the things I've mentioned, of my sort of social point of view, my worldview would probably be coming out of British punk music, which was my love as a teenager, and alternative music, punk, new age, mod music, whether it was from Britain or the US or whatever. So I suppose what came first, the little rebel, or did the music shape that, or did the music appeal to that? Who knows? But that was definitely formative.
Got it. Interesting. That's interesting to hear about music, actually, because I have something brewing. There's somebody else that also music really shaped their beginnings, and it's coming to, as you're speaking, it's coming to me. I'm going to bring it up. But I want to know, when your son was diagnosed with his illness, we can really see that some of the critical changes that you've made were qualified by that event. So did you ever think that health in any way would be something that would stop you in your tracks, or was that just like blindsided?
Well, I was blindsided by his illness. There's no doubt about that. I guess theoretically we know that health is the first wealth. I think maybe Emerson said that. I can't remember who, but it is the first wealth, right? And we know we need our health to do anything, but it's not until you see someone completely incapacitated with a health issue that you realize that there is nothing else unless that's fixed or can be fixed. And as the parent of a child in that circumstance, you're in it with them. So your life also is matched to that, to the extent that you are there living in the hospital too.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though you don't have the health issue personally, your life is affected as if you did.
Good point, because you're spending all those hours by his hospital bed. And can I ask how long he actually spent in the hospital?
He was critically ill for 2 solid years. So we lived, and he was in protective isolation for about 6 to 8 months, which means he lived in a room, hospital room, with very little contact with the outside world. And so I left my job. We moved house, as in we had to go and live in Sydney. We live in Canberra, and we had to move to Sydney, which is where he was receiving treatment. So we were separated from my daughter Mia until she said she was coming, and she was going to change schools to do that. I'm so glad she did, because I think our relationship probably would have been next to over if she had not have shared that last year with us, because it's such a traumatic experience to go through. But if she would have had a traumatic experience of her own on a parallel but very different pathway if she wasn't with us.
Wow.
So I'm glad she had the foresight to insist.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for talking about all the different arms of effect, because, you know, in movies often you see the silent character, which is one of the family members, you know, who's getting left a little bit behind. And I think you've just had this awareness of the bigger picture the whole time, which is to maintain a relationship with your daughter through all this as well. So how did it begin to shift? Like, tell me about sitting in that room. Was the shift of the work that you wanted to do and your passion, did it start to like spear itself there? You know, there's a lot of hours of downtime. Did it happen there, or was it after the 2 years when you realized your son could recover?
No, it actually came out of the force of it actually came out of a bid to try and save his life, because I could see his medical circumstances became so complex and difficult that he was deteriorating. And he tried so hard for 18 months and put up such a fight. And then if your whole life is already over, if everything you care about is already gone and fading, your friends, your school, your connections, your fun, your ability to use your body, then what are you fighting for? And so I could see him starting to kind of opt out. It was getting too hard. And that's when to me, it was, what can I do to save this kid's life? And that was really, how can I show him that he has a future, that he can survive? And I just turned to school, because that's the thing he told me was so important to him. And, well, what is school to a kid? It's their life, it's their community. Yeah. And then it was, you know, we talked a little bit about this that you're doing and act as if, you know. And it was, at times I scripted him through a future that I imagined. You know, I can't wait to see you graduate year 6, and imagine when you start high school and we take you there. And, you know, and I went through and I helped him envision that. And, you know, it's not the only thing that saved his life, because we had amazing medical care. But without hope, I know he would have died, because, yeah, it was really, really hard. And that's why I do what I do. So it started there for him. And then I just saw something that seemed so obvious to me was, all right, now I should really ask for help to connect him back to his school. I should really do this, you know. And I thought everyone would rally around and say, oh, yeah, okay, here's what we'll do. And that didn't happen. In fact, the opposite happened. I started getting blocked the more I pushed. And I'm a pretty persistent person, especially when, you know, I'm told I can't do things. So I sort of went, this is interesting. And that's probably where my background and my work experience came into it. And I could see that I wasn't being singled out for special treatment here, in that, you know, nobody was just doing this to me or him. That actually what I'd uncovered was something that was probably happening to most kids in a situation like Darcy's. Yeah. And that it was a systemic problem, and it was a problem of invisibility. And if I want to be brutal about it, a problem of benign low expectations.
Yeah.
Oh, they're sick.
Yeah, and you want to not, and perhaps a sense of, I don't want to see this, because if I do, I might fear something in my own life.
Yeah, indeed. And also something that faces all of us, and it faces us as entrepreneurs and people who are aspiring to do things, which is that limiting belief that doesn't allow you to see another possibility. So somebody at some point in time had this operating paradigm that spread, that everybody had it, which is, oh, they're sick, we should wait till they get better, which of course is not like, why can't they do the things they care about? Sure, they can be quite unwell a lot of the time, but why can't they do some of their schoolwork, and why can't they see their friends?
But I'm gonna sit in that paradigm, for the old paradigm, because I just got really emotional. You could see it, but we're just speaking. So, and I think what it was I got it. I didn't get it until you just described why it mattered. Like I did, and I think the old paradigm is, oh, who cares about writing a math test? What does that matter when you're fighting for your life? But it's not that. It's about, this is hope. This is my community. This is what I care about. And, you think about other organizations that bring hope, like Make-A-Wish Foundation, and you kind of understand that. But I always wondered, the one thing I wondered about when you do one wish is it's one thing once. But what you're doing is a continuation of, why does my life matter? And you're right. This is like the social engagement that you've got as a kid. It's like your whole world, literally.
It's your world, yeah. And what are we telling these kids if we tell them, not even verbally, not even deliberately tell them, but if all of a sudden we don't care about their education, what message are we giving them?
Yeah,
you're not going to make it. And kids are so incredibly smart. They're intuitive, right? Their little bodies and brains are designed for survival. So they sense a lot before they can even verbalize it. So, and one of the kind of catchphrases or catch lines I use to make it really palpably clear is, we've got to do more than save bodies. We have to save hearts and minds as well.
And that's what I got from what you said. Like saving someone isn't about their body, it's about their spirit. And
that's it.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. What is a life? What is saving a life? So this is, and thank you for also saying it took a moment in time there where you had this realization about it, because that was the same for me. Even when I was with my child at that time. I'm an educated person. I value education, and it didn't become, I tried to keep him connected to school, and I thought, what happens if he misses out on a lot of school? And that was an intellectual exercise for me. But across the time of his illness, the longer the time went, the more important it became for me to show him he mattered today, and that he was remembered by his community.
Yeah.
And I had a teacher say to me, "Oh, we'll just, when he comes back, we'll just do it." And I said, "Well, you can't see what I'm seeing.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's coming back. I want him to know that you cared about him today, that his friends cared about him and remembered him now." So this is the fire. This is what fuels it, and the fact that these kids fight so hard.
But I want to say something that you just said to the teacher. You can't see what I see, because I want everybody who's listening to really get the importance of casting a vision, like being able to take what you see and share it powerfully, because what you just did for me was what I'm sure you did for the teacher, but also the government. When you really went inside the government and saw a gap and spoke, you can't just, give stats. to me, what you do is being able to let somebody see what you see. And this is what we want people to understand is so important, is being able to paint that vision. And if you can get somebody emotional, to me, that's like, that picture became a picture for me. And that's what I really got. To me, I also saw older people. I really got that it's the same. There's a complete spiritual death, you know, the spirit and the hope. And, you know, I thought of a couple examples, you know, of course, that's what you do. The pictures go to things that you can relate to. It's like, whoop. And it's the same thing over there. But I just want to make one more point, because in the intro, I didn't mention that you're at the front end. You're so innovative in that, bringing robotics to this project, because initially I thought, well, just get the schoolwork into the hospital. But no, your vision is so clear, because that is not what this is about. This is about having him engage in his community, in his classroom, with the people. So just describe a little bit about that element of robotic and how you're solving that problem. Yeah.
Yes. So, and we didn't have it at the time when Darcy was sick, but what the telepresence robots do. So imagine, you know, an iPad or a tablet on a stick, if you like, with a base and wheels, and video conferencing in through that iPad or that tablet. So the robot, as I've just described it, stands in a classroom for the sick kid when they're not there, when they're in hospital or at home, allows them to be in their classroom from wherever they are. They can see and hear their teachers and classmates. They can be seen and heard, and they can even move the robot around from their keyboard remotely. So, and this last piece is really critical, because we could accomplish this with an iPad and Skype, right? Theoretically, we have that. But what the robot enables, the robot is really anthropomorphic, which means it sort of represents a body.
Okay.
And it's the capacity to independently move it around that makes all the difference, because that represents us in the space. So we can turn it, we can look, we can move to a group, we can go off to assembly, we can be in the hallway having a chat. So, you know, that's the difference here. It's the mobility that it offers on top of the video conferencing.
Yeah, and you know what? And you said the word there, but maybe there's something really deep happening here, and you're so on top of it, is that holding space is worth, like almost worthiness, you know, holding space in a place with choice, you know, the choice
absolutely
is really what you're talking about. And that's maybe what we're actually living for, huh?
It is, and it's so great that you put it that way. And I'll use that as another description, because you've touched on a really critical element of the social innovation architecture here, because the technology is one thing. So the technology looks like the innovation, but it's actually a social innovation. That's what we've architected here. And the choice of that description, that you like, the robot that holds space in the place that you should be, holds space for you, it's a proxy, was carefully chosen by me as what I call in this sort of, and I urge people to read Jim Collins' Good to Great and his follow-on monographs, because I'm going to talk about them a bit here. But he calls, you know, in your business, to go from good to great, to have a catalytic mechanism. And for me, the robot is a catalytic mechanism, because by holding space in that environment, it does a whole lot of other things. It gets the teacher's attention. It can be problematic, but I don't mind that. I don't mind that the teacher has to work it out, and sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes they have to call their IT guy in, and it's usually a guy, and you know, that a buddy has to turn it on and make sure it's charged, because guess what we're doing now? Where there was invisibility and forgottenness, there's now remembering an action for that person. And so it catalyzes change in the school.
Yeah, I got it.
It places the problem in the classroom.
Instead of the forgotten, swept under the carpet space.
Too hard because you're not in the room. So we're talking about diversity here. We're talking about new ways of inclusion. We're talking about science, technology, engineering, maths in the classroom. We're talking about a whole lot of boats being floated. And those other things that I've mentioned have also been important to the uptake, the perception, the government's point of view of it in different states.
Wow.
You know, it's got attention, and that's what needed to happen.
And like, how many years, give people a little spectrum of how many years this has been going on, because, you know, I think some people short-sighted in got this idea, it's going to go to market, doom. So it doesn't really happen like that, does it? So
It doesn't.
How long has it taken to get to here, and what's next? Where you at?
Yeah. Okay. So it's taken, we're at the 18-month point in implementing the robot pilot, which is an Australian first, and it's probably first in the world to use this exact kind of mobile robot technology across a whole country. So that's we're almost operating in 8 states and territories across K-12, across all illness groups, and using government systems to do it. And so it took a year to get to there, and we're at the 18-month point. So, but how long did it really take? I started this in 2012 as an official organisation with 2 other mums, and so it took until I pitched for the grant when I was on my Churchill Fellowship from the Netherlands, and so from 2012 to 2017, it really took me that amount of time to get this into the real world, from a dream, a vision, and to make it a palpable, real, you know, thing that was happening.
That's right.
Now, there were many other steps along the way there, and there were different things we did that led to that being possible. Mm-hmm. But you know, that's been the period of time.
So, like, because I wanted to establish time, because I'm sure there wasn't a lot of accolades, especially for those 2 other moms that you were working with, and you know, and you're being stopped a little bit because this was different and new. So, do you constantly connect why you do what you do, or do you have to kind of step back and remind yourself?
It's both. So I'm constantly reminding myself to connect.
Okay.
Because when you're doing anything, let's call it endeavor, let's call it edge, operating at the edges, edge thinking, edge manifesting, edge whatever, it's disruptive. People can't see the vision at first, and it's kind of worse than people putting in barriers in place or people being negative about it. It's that they don't care. No one talks about it. Do you know what I mean? It'd be nice if somebody was kind of agitating against you, but no one gives a damn, you know? It's like, meh. So to me, it's always there. But let's face it, the days can be boring, right?
Right.
When you've got to do the accounts on the thing and the stuff and tick off your checklist, and you know, you're on the what I always refer to as the triple constraint in any project: time, money, scope. You know, if you've got more of one, you'll have less of the other too, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's goes like that. So it's hard. What I always come back to is why am I doing this when I want to give up, which is every day. I'm going to be honest.
You're awesome.
I want to tell everyone right now that there are many moments in the day when I'm like, why am I doing this? I don't want to anymore. I'm over it. Or there are tears, or there are tantrums. There are plenty of all of those things. And what I come back to is I made a commitment. I promised myself I wouldn't turn my back on those kids because of what they do. And on my really tough days, this is what I ask myself. I have a choice here. They don't. Is this really hard? So that's what I say. Is this really hard?
Yeah. What's hard?
And yeah, and my answer is very clear. No, this is a choice. You can stop it at any time, but don't say it's too hard. So that's how I reconnect to it. And sometimes there are, some of those beautiful enlightened moments with fresh tears and joy and gratitude and the absolute connection to it at a full level. And then there are the other times when I've just got to bootstrap it and pull myself along.
And I know, and bootstrapping it and making sure that you have a daily do, like, I know that's one of your strengths, whether that was from your background before, but to me, you represent organization. And when we worked with you, that's what you really helped us with, is taking some of these inspirations and ideas and putting them into a daily, operation, so what, do you have a process? Do you wake up each day and go, what am I inspired to do? Or do you sort of have it all mapped out?
Oh, it's both. I don't have it all mapped out. So probably the best way to describe it, well, I'll say one thing first.
Yeah.
What I've learned through this whole time, this whole process, is that inspiration and motivation are existent about 0.01% of the time.
Yep.
When you read that fresh, quote, and you were like, on Facebook, something scrolling through, and you're like, it really, and then the next minute you return to your to-do list, and right there, you're overwhelmed. So I say that motivation is a myth, that it's only action that counts. And the way to shift a lack of motivation and inspiration is to take action. Okay. And so what do I work to? You talk about mapping, how do I map or whatever, and I operate, and I teach this too, and one of my partners and I developed it for business. It's a theory of change. It comes from the social sectors. And so it's a way of looking at an ecosystem of a problem, which essentially that's what a business does, or a mission does. It's solving a problem. And so it's a way to map that problem down to its root causes, such that there's no further you can go. And once you do that, you can see and you map all of the elements of that down to root causes. You can then use a solution map, and you lay it over the top of it. And it's very powerful because it gives you a theory to operate to and test. It gives you a pathway of action, and quite often you can choose a pathway that hasn't been chosen before, or something, as I've talked about before, that has this catalyzing effect, where by following one pathway or one part of the mapping process, you can get this effect where it has a sort of effect beyond your steps, and so you get more bang for your buck, basically.
So who here is listening going, we need Megan back to talk exactly about this problem definer, solution, action step, mapping process. This is what I'm thinking, and I know everyone else is like, keep going. However, I want to kind of guard that, if I can, and if you're okay with that, and kind of like allow a whole episode, if you're cool with it.
Yeah, happy to do that.
You ask people live, right? It's like the total pressure move.
That's right.
And who's going to be the one to go now? So I would love...
I'm too busy. I'm not able to do that.
Sorry, I am solving the world's problems. If you'd be up for it, I'd love to actually come right in and focus on that, so that people can have their notes out and really learn that process if you're up for it, because to me,
it's very powerful.
Like, you can't see this, you guys, but behind Megan is like part of that action. You know, I can see that she's got like a map, and there's like all these Post-it notes and lots of colors. And to me, imagine waking up every day with a sense of, I know what I'm doing. And like Megan said, action helps you move through the overwhelm. And so to me, I think a lot of people go, yeah, I get that, but action what? Like, what am I going to do? So I would really love to, if you're cool with it, do that. And one of our other goals is to always have our conversations feel like a little bit like we're not fully satiated. And I know that's not always common, but yeah, we want more, right? And that's how I feel with you. And I just want to appreciate and thank you for sharing how you really share a story, and how you do it with letting me see what you see. We've worked together before, and I've never seen it like that before. And so thank you. I had a visceral experience. And to me, that always means wake up to that. There's something here for me. So I hope, and I know that other people have experienced that as well. And I just want to thank you for being my friend and being willing to share what you do with other people so that they can also make a difference in the world. So thank you.
My great pleasure. Yeah, we just need more change makers to come on board and do their thing. Follow, as you said. I think a really good note to wrap it on is around vision. Is there are things that only you can see, and what are they? Because they're the things where we can really make huge change on and huge shifts, because whatever it is that's brought us into our place in our life, our upbringing, our worldview, whatever the components of us are, whatever that we're constituted of, makes us able to see something or a number of things in quite a unique way. And that's what I'm going to be building on and doing next is this sort of insights for social change. So,
ooh, see, she's just dangling this carrot in front of us. Megan, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. Don't forget to join the community at bit.ly/The Nat and Sarah Show to download your 3-step journal and participate in weekly lives found only in our private group.
Hold on. You've got to rate and review the show. And I know all the podcasts are always asking this. And in the past, I wasn't doing it. And the reason I wasn't doing it is because I actually didn't know how to do it. So open your podcast player and click on our show from your library, not the Listen Now. That's where I was going wrong in the past. So now that you know how to do it,
when you go there, make sure you give us a 5-star review. 5 stars. And then click on write a review link to actually write a review so that you can tell other people that we're legit and even funny, maybe a bit serious.
So if you want to recommend this to someone, you have to put your fingers on the keys and send us a review.